Are you one of the many parents who experience burnout? That feeling of exhaustion, stress, like chronic stress. This is too much. I don't even want to get up. Like, I just don't have time. Everything is on my shoulders. It's almost like that level beyond stress. So today's episode is all about what it is like when we feel burnout, what it's like when we're experiencing it, when we're leading up to it. What are the causes? What are some things we can do? Like, how can we get out of that phase and that stage of actually being burnt out, that chronic stress and exhaustion? If we feel like we're leading up to getting to the stage where we're burnt out, are there things that we can do to kind of mitigate and just not reach that point? Today's conversation, I think, is so powerful. I think it's a much needed discussion. It's with my good friend Krysten Taprell, who you may know her on Instagram and Facebook as the Therapist Parent. She has collectively, I think, well over 300,000 followers on her social media, and she's just an absolute breath of fresh air. I love talking to her. So if you're a parent who has experienced burnout or feels like maybe I'm on the way to that because there is just too much going on for me to handle, then I really think this episode is for you. I often actually think that when you're clicking onto an episode and then you start hearing what it's about, you've kind of, I don't know, been called there for a reason. I feel like we stumble upon things that maybe we need right at this time, even if we don't know it. Please, pass this on to parents or friends that you think might benefit from this. I would love that. And before we begin, I do want to acknowledge the Darug Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, work, and record this podcast. I pay my respects to all First Nations people, elders, and ancestors, and I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and I stand in solidarity towards a shared future. Okay, guys, enjoy this episode. Let's jump straight in. Okay, hi, Krysten. How are you?
I'm good, Steph. How are you?
I am very good, thank you. And I'm excited to be talking to you. We've had a few conversations over the last little while, and I always leave the conversations feeling very sort of grounded, but also uplifted, like we're on the same wavelength, and I really like that.
Yeah, me too.
So let's jump straight in. And maybe for people who haven't heard about you or your work yet, especially the Therapist Parent, which I know is huge, and I share as much as I can because I love it. Yeah, tell us a bit about you and your work.
Okay, so I am a psychologist, have been for over 20 years now. I've always worked almost exclusively with children and families. I've worked in schools and other settings as well. But the whole Therapist Parent came about because I was seeing a lot of similar situations coming through my door, and I thought there's got to be a better way to get information to parents. So that's when I wrote my children's book and then created the Therapist Parent, and it's just gone from there.
Yeah. And so are you mainly on Instagram, but also Facebook or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram. Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram. And so you mentioned working with children and families.
Mm-hmm.
Did you make that move into working with the parents and focusing on them? And if so, why?
Yeah. So I've just found, like, if you work with children, just children, and I do love working with kids, it's the parents that are there with them on the day-to-day basis, and it's the parents that need to coach them through. So if we're not helping the parents, we're actually not helping the kids, and it's not going to be long-lasting change. So yeah, my focus is definitely now on helping parents.
Yeah. And do you think that makes a bigger difference in families' lives?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's only so much you can do to teach a child for like an hour a fortnight.
Yeah.
But a parent is there all the time. And so when we give the parents the skills, then they're then helping their child. And then that makes huge changes in the whole family, like as a whole being, the family. And yeah, it's just a better outcome for everybody.
Yeah. As you were saying that, the whole kind of family, I thought of that concept of the family unit and almost like the web, like there might be several family members, but if one kind of pulls out a bit, we're going to talk about burnout obviously today, but if something's happening to one, I'm trying to, like, you guys on the podcast can't see me, but on YouTube you can. I'm trying to sort of describe this, like everyone gets put, especially we're going to talk mostly about mums, but mums and dads get burnout or experience burnout. But I feel like, at the top of the, I don't know, the web, or, us as the kind of family leaders, if we move or start to struggle, then it affects, like the ripple effects go down to everyone in the family.
Absolutely. So when I was, first doing family therapy, that's what we talked about with systems theory, where it's like a dance. The family is like a dance. And if one person's behavior changes, it actually impacts everybody else's behavior. And so that's why you can't just deal with one person. You actually got to deal with the whole family.
Oh, I love this. I don't actually know much about, is this internal family systems? Is that what that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I actually don't know much about that. I've never gone into like doing that work or study or anything like that. Can you tell us, because I can see how this relates so much to us as parents. If we burn out, then it ripple effects out to everyone. So can you just kind of cover that quickly?
Yeah, quickly, I'll try. So in systems theory, it's like the whole family unit works together, and we get used to doing things a certain way and managing things a certain way. And if we just work on one person, it actually impacts the whole the whole family and how everyone reacts. So if you're just working, like quite often I would have parents say, well, we're doing all these things for this child, but now this one's playing up, and now I go, yes, because you've changed the family system and the way things work. We actually need to change what's happening in the whole family and take into consideration what those behaviours were, what needs were they being met in that. We're looking behind the behaviours in that so that we can work out why it's there and why it was needed. So, yeah. So in burnout, if a parent is getting burnout, children will react certain ways because they need certain needs met. And if a parent is burning out, then a child's often their behaviour may escalate because they need more as well. And so everybody's behaviour is interplayed together.
Yeah, it's all interwoven, really. You can't really separate it, right?
No,
That's
you
what I think.
can't.
Yeah. So maybe let's can you tell us, I know we talk about burnout and things a lot as parents, and we experience it and we feel it,
Yeah.
but maybe give us like what actually is burnout, and are there signs leading up to burnout that maybe we can notice before we're like, right, that's it, I'm out of here. Like, you guys make dinner on your own. I don't care.
I'm going. Yeah, and I think making a little bit of a distinction between just burnout in general and parental burnout, because burnout can be when we've just got everything on and like work's busy, home life's busy, and we just take on too much and we burn out in general. Parental burnout's a bit different because usually if we're suffering from parental burnout, we can go to work and feel okay and get things and feel productive and okay, and then we get home and it's like, we can't do this anymore. So it's still an exhaustion. It's still the same sort of symptoms in there's like this exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to help. Like you could go on a holiday, but that doesn't, you come back and it's all the same. That exhaustion that you can't seem to recover from. And then there's lack of motivation, and your tolerances go down. So things that you, with your kids that, you used to be able to sort of be okay with and manage through, you're just snapping. And that's where your triggers that seem to be even heightened. Your productivity goes down. So, wanting to do things with your kids, that motivation and that productivity goes down. But we kind of get into, like, if you think of your nervous system, you're in a state of fight, flight, freeze, and you're probably more in the freeze where have you ever sort of sat there and there's piles of stuff that needs like washing and things to be done, but you just can't do it because you're kind of numb and you're kind of frozen in that. The other thing is that when we're really in parental burnout is that our compassion goes down and our understanding, our empathy goes down, and we kind of get numb because kids seem to be whinging at us all the time. And so we can't care for that all the time because we've got nothing left in ourselves. The problem with that is that we tend to then become the parent that we didn't want to be in the first place. and we snap and we say and we do things and we don't feel too bad about it. It feels very justified in there, or it actually increases our guilt, increases our negative thinking, and then we spiral even more.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit separate to just normal burnout, because it's more of what happens when you're in your parenting. You could be happily chatting to your friends, you could be happily okay at work, but then as soon as you're in, the groundwork of working with your kids, it's like, I just can't do it anymore.
Okay. And so is this different to stress when we feel as parents, I'm so stressed because my kids always need me because I'm doing everything, or maybe it's all on my shoulders, maybe I'm a single parent, or like, is there a difference between stress or a high level of stress and actual that level of I'm burnt out?
So the high level of stress is more an intensity, whereas burnout is a duration. Like it's that stress, but for a longer time, to the point where you're no longer able to function like you want to. So stress is usually for a short period of time, and then you kind of go up and down in waves. You sort of, okay, this is a really hard time, we're having a really rough patch, but then we get through it. Whereas burnout is you just don't feel like
Constant.
you can keep
Constant, is it? Yeah. And so would prolonged periods of stress, or more, like when we talk about the ups and downs of stress, and stress can be good. Like stress is not a bad thing inherently, unless it's too intense, as you said, or too prolonged. Is it one or the other, or just a mix of, if you have lots of bouts of stressful days or moments, but also maybe they're lasting longer, and then you're going to tip into burnout? Like, what is
Yeah, basically that it's the longer term sort of stress. So if you're not able to manage that stress, or it's for long periods of time, then it is eventually going to tip into burnout.
Okay, so let's talk about the causes or the possible causes of stress. And we kind of touched a bit then, I think, on the signs is in stress, but is there anything else that we need to know if we think, oh my gosh, maybe I am leaning towards, like, maybe I'm on the verge of burnout, how would I know, kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's being aware of those things, like we said. What are you more reactive than you used to be? Are you finding that you're saying things that you're like, geez, where the heck did that come from? Or you've at the end of the day, if you sit back and go, oh, like I feel really bad about this whole day. I feel like I've just been at the kids all day, or there's just that exhaustion where you're like, you're not even functioning, you're not even thinking clearly, it's not even feeling anymore, it's just survival. Then there's signs that you're maybe heading for burnout. Be careful though. I just want to make it clear that these signs are very similar to depression, and I don't want people to think that oh, it's just burnout, I'll be fine. If you're having these feelings, so a lot of this lack of motivation, low productivity, that numbness also, but if that is combined with, say, suicidal thoughts, or just not being able to get out of bed, or really down on yourself, then please go and see a doctor and get some help, because if it's affecting your sleep as well, that's another sign of depression, not necessarily burnout. Go and get some medical help.
That's a good point to make, because as you were talking, I was thinking, what are the differences? How would we know whether it's depression or burnout? But you answered that. So maybe let's talk about, some of the causes in our family. My head goes straight to, it's the kids. But what else?
Well, I think recent studies have actually shown that parental burnout is increasing. And that, to me, is quite scary. And that it's put down to, because people are taking on more of the parenting that we talk about, so more of the gentle, respectful parenting, but they're not getting a realistic view of what that really looks like. So they're thinking that means that as parents, we have to be calm all the time, and that we don't get angry, and that we're always really lovely to our children, which is not realistic, and so it's our expectation. So we've got we've got to check our expectations. So expectations of our kids is important. We do need to be aware of that because, like you said, yeah, it's our kids, and it is. But we also have to check that our expectations of our kids aren't too high. Often that is the case. As adults, we kind of expect that they can think through things and then they can manage their emotions, and they just can't. You know, you and I know that brain development for isn't it at least the prefrontal cortex where we can problem solve, where we can regulate, where we can have impulse control, that's not fully developed until our 20s, and for males that can be up to 30. So our expectation of our kids is often out of whack, and what we think they should be able to do, and thinking that they're doing it on purpose or they're manipulating us. Oh, I still hear people saying that babies are manipulating us by crying for food.
Yeah.
Like, no, they're just hungry.
They're doing the best they can with the little brain they have.
You've got a tiny little brain that's still developing, and they need to be responded to. So understanding brain development and child development and what is normal and what is what they should actually be doing is really important, because if we expect them to do more than they can, then they're going to be stressed, and so are we.
Yeah, I remember doing I think it was like a reel or a video or something about the expectation gap. And I was like, guys, there is a name for this, where we expect or we think our child should be able to tie their shoelaces or get all their lunch ready and not forget their hat and solve a problem maturely when their sibling won't share with them. I'm like, they can't. And so when there's that gap, that triggers us. But imagine if we could like just kind of close that gap, bring our expectations down into reality, which, when we know just a little bit, I think about child development and things like that, then we go, oh, they're not meant to be able to X, Y, Z, and they are still meant to be doing ABC. Like,
yes,
okay.
Yeah. And that changes our thinking. So instead of going, well, they're doing it on purpose, they're trying to manipulate me, they're being disrespectful, these kind of thoughts that we have, we can actually change them. They're doing the best that they can. It is normal that they behave like this. Kids are supposed to have be impulsive. They're supposed to have meltdowns. They're supposed to have difficulty with emotions. This is normal. When we take that expectation off ourselves and our kids, that helps reduce the stress for ourselves as well. But then expectations on ourselves can be massive. And like I sort of mentioned before, when we think that to be a good parent, we never get angry, that's madness. It is absolute madness, and it's not healthy. Anger is not a bad thing. And what I often tell parents is that if you get angry and you start to lose it with your child, and then whoa, hang on a sec, I'm feeling really angry about this, I need to go take a break, or I'm going to say something I'll regret. Think about what you're modeling to your child in that. How amazing is that? What a fantastic skill you're giving your kids by showing them what anger looks like, actually being able to regulate that and taking yourself away, then coming back. Isn't that what we want our kids to do? If we don't show them, how do they learn? So this expectation that we're always got this kind and loving, wonderful, soft voice is just going to send you insane.
Yeah, I feel like it's setting ourselves up to believe that we need to reach or attain this level of cool, calm robot like, okay, darling, please don't hit your brother. No, I said not to use the word butthead. Like, we are human. And I often say, if we can just unlearn some of those lessons that we learned as kids, that emotions are bad, anger is disrespectful, and to put it inside and leave it at the door or whatever, then we're not going to kind of live those beliefs where we are feeling awful when we get angry, or we're kicking ourselves or berating ourselves. We're going, whoa, you know what? That's a normal human emotion. Something's going wrong here because I'm feeling explosive. And like you said, I love kind of the little almost script you said. I'm feeling really angry about this. I need to go take a break before I say something I regret. I love that.
Yeah. And showing kids that we probably will go to say things. And look, if you do, like, because we all do at some point, and I try on my page to show that, we're real. I don't care who you are. Everyone's yelled, everyone's said something that they regret later. And that's okay. The important thing is repair. So to go to your child later and go, I am sorry. I shouldn't have said that. That was hurtful. What can I do next time? Or what do you think we could do next time? Let's problem solve this out together. Like that's fantastic. You're teaching them how to apologize, how to own their behavior, and then think ahead of what to do. Like these are not bad things. It feels yuck. It does feel awful at the time, but they are really helpful long term.
Yes, and can I add to that, because the speech pathologist in me, I was a speechy for 10 years before doing this work, and the speechy in me loves that's clear, conscious communication that is saying, this is how I'm feeling. I didn't like it. I want to let you know about that, and I want to see if we can work together to see if we can solve that problem so it doesn't happen next time. Like I love the owning your modeling, owning your behavior and taking responsibility and talking about emotions. And that we're like modeling this communication that a lot of adults do not, like we don't talk, we don't express, we think our partner should mind read, or like, I'm like, we need to actually say what we're feeling, put the words, string the words together in a sentence, bam.
Yeah. Actually, that comes like that's another expectation, is that we have these expectations of our partners and of ourselves that either they should know what I need, or no, or the other way, where I have to do everything, and then we resent them because we have to do everything.
So what's your advice when we feel like, not talking about personal situation here, just kidding. What advice do you have when we think we're doing it all ourselves, like, oh my gosh, it's all on my shoulders, or the mind reading, like, you should know, don't you see what I do, like that kind of between partners?
You got to have the conversation. As much as we tend to avoid these conversations, I don't think many people like conflict, and even the thought of there being a bit of conflict they avoid. But you've got to understand your partner's grown up with their set of rules and their expectations and the way they were parented, and that could be completely different to yours, and you've gone into parenting with completely different expectations of what each other does and how you manage it. Like you've actually got to come together and have the conversations and not expect that the other one, and you can't just give them the silent treatment hoping that they will then come and ask.
Damn it, really?
I know we all sort of try that one, but it doesn't work very well.
Okay, so have we talked about what triggers? We've kind of talked about causes of, but let's talk about knowing our triggers, because I know you speak on that. We're going to mention, actually, Krysten has an amazing course on parental burnout. We're going to talk about that at the end, but maybe let's talk about triggers, and then what can we do, how to kind of restore when we are feeling burnt out.
Okay, so we'll go like really quick. Like with triggers, they're things that happen automatically. So they're like our responses, and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? How did I say that? Or you hear your mother coming out of your mouth, or, they're things, but triggers can be anything because they're an automatic response. So our brain has associated something with a behavior. So it could even be if you go into a situation that feels the same as something you've experienced before, even smells, they can be triggers. That's how the brain works. It associates something with a behavior. So when you respond in a certain way, there's a reason for it. So if we want to change our triggers from being automatic, then we need to actually stop and think, actually, what was going on when I said that? What was I actually thinking? How was I feeling? And we need to pull it apart, because in that moment, it feels very justified. I've said this because I felt this so strongly, so it was okay that I said that. But actually, again, going back to what could be behind it, what are our expectations? What are our thoughts? They're being disrespectful. They need to answer me straight away. They can't back chat. And those triggers are probably from the way we were brought up as kids. And so our beliefs around what is okay and what isn't okay. And when we actually pull them apart, we can go, hang on a sec, are they being disrespectful? Just because they say no doesn't necessarily mean they're being disrespectful. Maybe my response there wasn't. And we have to relearn our responses. And again, we can get a bit hard on ourselves that we still go into that trigger sometimes. But it's just like I often say to parents when we're trying to teach kids different behaviors, if you're trying to, when you're teaching your child to read or tie their shoes, it takes time. That doesn't happen the first time you try. It's the same with parents relearning triggers. You have to learn to stop yourself in the moment, what's really going on, and changing that pathway in the brain and how you respond.
And we know that we can do that now because we know the brain science behind neuroplasticity. Yeah. So we know that we can relearn, we can learn new habits, new patterns, new behaviors, and we can unlearn old ones. But like you said, it just takes time. Yeah. Phew. So I want to hear a bit about your parental burnout course, but because I know you'll be talking about all of this stuff and how to restore ourselves when we feel like we're on the brink or we are in burnout. But maybe do you want to share one or two tips if a parent's listening to this thinking, oh my God, she's hitting every nail on the head kind of thing. This is me. What can I do?
So there are things that you can do. And I know as soon as I say self-care, most parents go, oh, who's got time for self-care? I'm too busy looking after everyone else. No, there are things that you can do. And that's in the course, I break it down into, there's the basic needs, which parents, especially mums with little babies, often neglect those ones. So even like you can't always get sleep. So that one, you got to, parenting has seasons. So there'll be things that you can do at different seasons and you've just got to work within that. But there are the basic needs that you can get. So that is looking after yourself with drinking enough water, eating healthy, getting some exercise and sleep if you can. And you don't have to do all of them. If you can't, you just focus on what you can do. And then there's other self-care needs, which are looking after your mental health, looking after your emotional health as well. So I'll go into that a bit more. But yes, there are things that you can do, but you do need to focus on what you can do to help restore yourself, because we do need to restore so we can give. Other things you can do is go back to what your focus is. So sometimes we get so overwhelmed in parenting that we lose the fact that we actually, purpose of this is to grow a human being to be an amazing adult. And if we stop and think about, okay, I'm doing this is really hard, but it's going to be worth it because this is going into my child. Have a think about what you hope your child remembers from if they're an adult, what you hope they remember from their childhood. What lessons do you want them to learn? Like if you look at your focus, that can help restore you a little bit. And then again, it comes back to doing some self-care, finding what your passions are, what you enjoy, and finding a way to do it in the season that you're in. So it doesn't mean if you love painting that you'll be able to paint, because when you've got toddlers, that doesn't work very well.
Disaster.
But you can find other creative things to do. So.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Okay. So tell us about your parental burnout course so we can learn more, and then where to access it to.
Yep. So in the parental burnout, I'll go through all of that. There's three videos that come with it, plus a whole lot of downloadable resources, and a lot of my illustrations that are on the Therapist Parent sites. They're in there as well, so you can print them out and stick them up if you need to. But yeah, there's lots of information, and when I go through relaxations and affirmations and things that you can do, they're all printed out for you, so you don't have to think about them and come up with them for yourself.
Oh, wow. Brilliant. So how long does the course take for someone to go through or to complete?
So each video is about half an hour each. So it's about an hour and a half. And then there are some questions or some work sort of to do or to read through as well. But you do it at your own pace.
Yeah. And then I assume you can rewatch and.
Yep. Once you've downloaded it, yes, it's yours to keep.
Good. Powerful. Is there any last piece of advice that you might want to, if parents can kind of grab onto this, that you can share with them before we finish up?
Yeah, look, I think just being aware, like take the moments to stop and check in with yourself and see where you're at and what you might need help with. So are you starting to feel on the verge of burnout? Are things getting a bit tricky? Can you get in there before things get difficult? Or what's really going on? Where do you want to be as a parent? And without getting down on yourself about that, what can you actually do to feel that you're able to do that?
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Krysten. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love talking to you, and you've shared so much and so openly. So a huge thank you from me and everyone listening.
Thank you.
Such a beautiful person, and she's just so easy to listen to. And I love that she is also Aussie. I know I have a mix of guests on this podcast, but I have a bit of a special spot in my heart for people who are on this continent. So I would actually love you guys to please suggest some more guests that we should have on this podcast. Send me a message somewhere on the socials. You guys kind of know where I am, or send us an email. You can check the show notes for all those details if you want, but I would love to see who would you actually like me to talk to invite on, and what questions would you ask them? Like, this is for you guys. I mean, I love talking about emotional intelligence and parenting, but really, if you guys aren't listening, this is just going out to, I don't know, the empty universe. So please let us know. And the other thing I want to mention is that Krysten's course, Parental Burnout, is online. It's available for you now. I'm going to put all her links in the show notes as well, so you guys can access that. I highly, highly recommend that you do it, especially if you're feeling like, oh my God, that was ticking all the boxes for me, and I don't like feeling like this, and I would like some support. Like, that's the most I want to say simple, easy way to just jump in and start getting some support for yourself. Okay. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Please do, if you take 2 seconds, review or rate the podcast on your platform. I would love that. And I'll see you in the next one.